Fiona and Cake Season 2 Episode 5 is here. And so with that said, I'll be breaking down the episode, covering everything that happens, giving my overall review of the episode, and any theories I may have. So drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and with that said, let's begin Fiona and Cake Season 2 Episode 5, which is titled The Butterfly and the River. The episode actually begins with us getting some Marshall lore, seeing him as a kid constantly wanting to make music or being drawn to making music, but his mom just not allowing him as she was always working. But then we see Marshall walking through the park before hearing singing coming from none other than the Ice Queen, and Marshall then comes up to her and asks for an ice cream, but then as he ends up dropping it and making a mess, he apologizes, expecting her to get mad at him just like his mom would, but instead she takes an ice cream and makes a mess on herself. And then she gives him her keyboard and the two just start making music together. This was such a cute little altercation, but then we see that they're actually being spied on. But we then cut to Fiona, Cake, and Huntress Wizard as they ask her what the heart of the forest is. She explains that it's a portal and that she needs to find the heart of this world in order to get back to hers. And Fiona then tells her that she knows about the oldest tree in the city, and Huntress Wizard tells her to take her there instantly. But we then cut to Gary and Marshall, with Marshall playing the guitar and Gary baking, and Marshall just apologizing, thinking that he's in his way, but Gary just saying it's fine and that he didn't even notice. But Gary then invites Marshall over to meet his parents, before we cut back to Fiona, Cake, and Huntress Wizard, who arrive at apparently the oldest tree in the city, which is none other than the Adventure Time treehouse. Prismo having that as the heart of this world makes a lot of sense. But Huntress Wizard then cuts off her hand in order to connect to the heart, but it ends up not working. But Fiona then gets a call from Marshall asking her to meet him, and then also a text from Gary telling her to meet him. And so Fiona tells Cake to watch over Huntress Wizard while she goes and takes care of their romance business. As we then see both altercations, with Gary telling Fiona that he just blurted out an invitation, and Marshall saying that he just agreed, with them both just panicking over nothing. Gary being scared of what he'll think about his childhood home, and Marshall just stressing over meeting his parents in general. But we then once again see the spy watching Marshall, but we then cut back to Cake and Huntress Wizard, with Cake being asked out on a date by Monochromicorn, before Huntress Wizard figures out that music is actually what makes the magic in the tree start to happen. And as everything starts to shake, Huntress Wizard touches the tree and seemingly gets transported. But we then cut to Fiona meeting with Flame Prince, as she tells him about everything that's going on with the sweet spot, and that she needs him for a venue to make money, which she's completely on board with. But he then takes Fiona to his studio, where we then see him making a song with none other than this world's version of Rap Bear. This was a very unexpected cameo. But we then cut back to Huntress Wizard and Cake, who are now in what seems to be the heart of this world. And then as Cake is curious as to where a portal leads, they step through and it actually brings them to a version of Ooh within the Adventure Time treehouse, where we then see that they're actually in the original Fiona and Cake world. But we then see the wave that turned everything into the boring self that it is once Simon turned into his normal self again. But Huntress Wizard then says that this isn't the heart of the forest, so I guess that this place is just a whole other thing. But we then cut to Gary and Marshall, who arrive at Gary's parents' house. And Gary's parents are just extremely cute and super nice, and they even put on a videotape of some Gary lore of when he was a kid just baking and taking care of his sibling, who was obviously this world's version of Nettie. But they then ask Marshall to play music on their keyboard, in which he sings a song about the friends that he can't forget, before remembering back to the Ice Queen, which makes me think that somehow in this world she also lost her memory, similar to Simon. But we then go back to Cake and Huntress Wizard, who enter another past version of the Fiona and Cake world, where we see a little Marshall Lee jumping on the tree before getting hit by the red beam wave and turning into the normal self that he is, before seeing him get yelled at by his mom. But as Cake then sees a butterfly and a spider, Cake kills the spider, saying that if you ever end up in the past, you can't let a butterfly die. This spider was also obviously a reference to the episode Web Weirdos. But as they realize that all these portals are in the past, they head down the stream and go into a portal which is clearly far, far in the future. But we then see everything just covered in cobwebs, with massive butterflies flying in the sky, and Baby Fid now with butterfly wings just hunting them down in the coolest way possible. But they then talk to Peppermint Butler through the necklace that he's wearing, who then says that 1,000 years ago an epidemic of those butterflies took over, and that it all started with this tree, showing quickly why you don't mess with the past, as even something as small as killing a spider that was about to kill a butterfly in Adventure Time can change the entire future. But hearing this, Cake then says, "Oh shit," which caught me so off guard. But we then cut to Gary and Marshall, and Marshall tells Gary that when he's controlling, he reminds him of his mother. But Gary then tells him he should express his feelings through music in the same way he does through baking. And then the two kiss, which was actually really wholesome. But we then cut back to Fiona, who sees Queenie already enacting her plan for the sweet spot, despite the fact that they had a deal to wait until the end of the week to get money. Queenie just says that she remembered that she hates Fiona. Like, she is genuinely just in opposition, bro. But they then strike a new deal in order for Queenie to call it off, which is now gone from getting 50k to 70k. But as Fiona walks away, she realizes that she's being followed, and then she pins the spy up against the wall, asking him why she's following her. But we then cut back to Huntress Wizard and Cake actually goes in another reality without Huntress Wizard and sees a version of the world where Fiona worked for Marshall's mom. But they then go back to the normal reality, and for some reason Huntress Wizard just throws up Cake, but Cake then instantly kills the butterfly, saying that she saved and endangered the future, which was actually pretty funny. Well, we then also see that Huntress Wizard's horns got bigger, making her now back into her full normal self, I'm pretty sure. But we then cut to the spy, who actually of course works for Marshall's mom, before Fiona then walks into the room. But we then cut to Simon, who then uses the demonic wishing eye, bringing us back to this crazy world that we haven't seen since the episode Bananas in Adventure Time Season 10. They then ask Wishy if he can save Finn, and he says that he doesn't know, but then says that he'll try, and then says that he's like a new man. But then as we cut back to the normal world, we see Finn just wearing silly glasses, before we see him just start looking 10 times worse, before Simon just screams Wishy and the episode ends. I really thought that the demonic wishing eye would be what saves Finn, as now we're on episode 6, but I guess we'll still have to wait to see whatever is gonna save Finn. It'll probably be when Huntress Wizard finds the actual heart of the forest, as what Cake and Huntress Wizard were in was kind of like a heart of the forest, but was more so like a core of the Fiona and Cake world, being a place to see the past and the future and different versions of it. So yeah, just something different entirely. The Marshall lore in this episode is kind of interesting, but also kind of not, seeing that he always wanted to make music and that his mother just didn't let him, and how he met the Ice Queen, but then singing a song at Gary's parents' house about forgetting friends, making it seem like she maybe lost her memory, which if so would give him a very similar backstory to Marceline and Ice King, which I want to be like, oh, that's sad, but also we've already seen this backstory with Marceline and Ice King. And also Marshall's mom sending a spy to watch him makes me want to be interested as to why, but my theory is that just like Marceline and Hudson, the two just don't get along, or he thinks that his mom hates him, but then we're gonna see that she's spying on him because she cares about him, and then he's gonna be sad, or the two are just gonna start getting along just like Marcy and Hudson did. That's what I think is gonna happen, and once again, if that does, that's just a replication of Marceline's story completely, so it's hard to be super interested in, but I guess we'll just have to see. A lot of people have been complaining that the pacing of this season is bad, and now I'm kind of starting to see it. If something crazy doesn't happen in the next episode, then I will genuinely be surprised. But anyways, with that said, that is gonna be the end of the video, so if you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next one, whenever that is.